All right, everybody. Welcome to week number 4, our final week of creative presentation. It's been a really fast-paced month, and I'm sure this will not be the last fast-paced month. We were just talking about that before I hit the record button about how quickly it goes by. So here we are in week number 4, just wrapping up all of the final items to take care of before you guys take 1 second to breathe on Sunday and go straight into Monday on your next course. I believe for most of you, that is psychology of play, and you'll have different instructors and different classmates, and it'll all kind of start over with that process. But it's been a great month. A lot has been accomplished. If you really think back to the end of June and where you've started to where you are now, it's just quite a lot that you have accomplished. So be proud of yourselves. You've done it. You've made it to the end of the course. So let's really make this week count. Chandler's saying no, not new classmates. Chandler is like, nope, I'm not dealing with it. I don't want to have that. But you have to. You have to have change. Change is the only constant around here and around life in general. But just guys, then Justin is saying, yes, you still have your Discord group that you guys can continue networking and connecting, as long as you want to. And that's a wonderful way to stay in touch. Justin, thank you for creating that. And I'm glad that I got to share that with you guys so you guys can still have a meeting place for each other. I think a lot of courses are starting to kind of implement that. So you might see that more and more often. I'm still kind of looking at it and learning the ins and outs of it. So thank you again, Justin, for doing that. But want to talk to you guys just moving forward before we get into the content and due dates and all of that, about what you can kind of expect moving into your new courses that you're venturing into. So obviously, every instructor is very, very different in the way that they grade and the way that they communicate and the way that they present information. So it's really important, guys, that you just stay on top of things. If you feel that you're getting behind, if you're feeling that you're not understanding, keep in mind this is an online environment. So as instructors, we can't see you. We can't get those nonverbal cues like we could in the classroom that perhaps something is off. Perhaps someone looks a little confused or hesitant to speak up. So you really do have to take initiative in your education as you're moving forward to speak up before it gets to be too overwhelming. So make sure that you're doing that, and also be sure to get to know your instructors as well. We're all very, very different people, but our goal really is common in wanting you guys to succeed. So keep up with your instructors, keep up with your classmates too. These are going to be important players in the next couple years of your life, and you want to build those strong connections as you're moving through your time at Full Sail. So what you get out of it is what you put into it. Chandler's saying, I tried to send audio message to easily convey emotions. I think Chandler, that's another great way, because that is tough to convey emotion and the proper tone via text message or email messages. And so sometimes it's nice to hear that tone, and you guys will actually receive my feedback as an audio message this week. So just to kind of move into my next section here with what y'all could expect for grading this week. So I have completed one section of the first draft assignment, and all of my feedback is going to be in audio format. So it's basically me just talking and just kind of telling you what I suggest that you work on for the final draft. So yes, you will receive an audio feedback. I do that for students that turned it in on time. Oftentimes it's very hard to find a quiet place to record when on campus. So I do all of that recording in my home space at home where it's quiet. I can control it, and there's not a ton of background noise of other instructors talking to everybody else. The offices can get rather rowdy back there, but you should be receiving that. Do I have my screen up? Oh no. Thank you, Justin, for reminding me or telling me about that. Can you see it now? I don't think I had the option. You should be able to see it now, the one with the little dog with the big old goggles on it. You should be able to see it. Thank you for letting me know. You were just hearing my voice. How boring, right? Sorry about that. But you will be receiving my audio feedback between now and at the very latest on Thursday. If it was turned in late, you probably won't receive my feedback until Thursday. But I'm working very hard to get that to you so you can spend the majority of this week making those changes, wrapping up the course, and putting it all, putting that final nice bow on there and moving forward. Okay, guys. So just want to let you know where I'm at, what you can expect this week. So let's keep moving forward. Oh, Danielle, you mentioned before I hit record that you had some questions that you wanted to pose to me and to the class. So I will kind of take this time before we move forward to open it up to anyone that would like to discuss anything. I will also have time at the end today, quite a bit of time to just kind of chat one-on-one or as a larger group. But I am here for you guys if you have any questions. So Danielle, I remember I think you were the one that brought it up before I hit record. So if you want to, I will pause here. And if you wanted to ask me some questions moving forward, we can do that. Yes, Danielle, let me unmute you. Okay, Danielle, it looks like you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I'm looking at you. I'm only working with an iPad for this course until we get the full information from the school. And I've been at length with FSO, and I'm at like the point where I'm going to explode on them because I don't know what to do with them. I've done the project in Keynote, in PowerPoint, in Adobe Sparks, and in iMovie. And the wonderful thing is, because I have an iPad, it's not the full program.
Okay.
It's the iPad version of the program. So I can do the slide projection and I can do the audio, but I can't put it together.
Okay. I have heard that that's an issue with PowerPoint because it's an online version and you're not able to record in there. But I did not know I don't believe that it's an issue with Adobe Spark because with an iPad, you should be able to access their app. Have you tried it on the app or their website?
It's the app itself. I signed up for Adobe Spark Video, and it only gives me 30 seconds per slide to record. Otherwise, it's asking me to pick something out of my iTunes to track to it.
Okay. So have you tried to import an audio file into that 30 seconds, or are you trying to record per slide?
If I record it per slide, I only have like 10 seconds or less, and I can't keep track of where my script is. So it doesn't even sound proper when I was.
Okay, I think there might be, let me just write a note down and we might need to have like just a conversation, you and I, because it keeps breaking up a little bit and that might be on my side. Because I created my own Spark presentation when I first started. And a couple people are also saying in the chat box that they can help. Examples are up. So we can all kind of start to work together. But I do believe I was able to drag the length of audio to a longer time than 10 seconds. But I want to look at it again and maybe work with you one-on-one in a go-to training. Like we could like screen share and do that type of thing if that's available.
Yeah, that's perfect. As long as I can get the project done. Because the way that I sent you the project for this last, I wasn't happy because I wanted the pictures to pop up as I was speaking about that specific subject.
Okay.
And you would know the audio first and then look at the pictures, how I was putting it together.
Okay. Well, let me do this. Will you don't do it through here, but send me a message with your cell phone number or the best way to contact you. We can either talk tonight or maybe tomorrow about that, and we can work together on getting that solved.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, do that for me. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and, did you have any other questions or can I mute you? You're good. Okay, great. All right. Let's see. So there's been a lot of responses. It's hard to kind of talk and read the messages at the same time, but there's a lot of conversation in here from classmates as well. So we will get this work done and see what we can do about that, Danielle. So do you guys have any other questions to address at this point? If not, we can also have a lot of time towards the end to do that. Good. Spencer's saying, for the voice recording, I just broke up my script, it bounced up for me in 1 second, into sections and recorded a slide for each section and picture. I believe that's how I did it as well. You kind of have to time it out correctly instead of just kind of a full-blown recording, if you will, which I thought was actually kind of helpful because if you messed up on one slide, it didn't really it didn't really affect all of the additional slides as if you were recording it out full out. But Danielle, we can definitely talk about that. Erin, you're saying, how are we doing as a class? Meaning just like, how are you guys progressing? I would say everyone's doing well. Chandler's saying fantastic. Everyone's doing pretty well. Oftentimes there is some confusion, and I try to, kind of cut that off at the pass as best I can. So it really is, for the majority of students, everyone really is on the right track. The section that I watched today, most of the submissions were right on, a lot of higher grades. So I think everything is on the right track. Oftentimes there's going to be exceptions to those rules, and then we chat as one-on-one conversations, but overall everyone is doing really well, and that's normally the case for most classes. So hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions? John, you're saying you're not getting anything on your side of the class. I late. Hopefully I'm broadcasting my voice and my images for you guys. If I'm not, someone tell me right now if you can hear me. But everything is being recorded as always. So if you're having anything happening on your end, you can always watch the recording. Justin, thank you for confirming that. So we'll pause, periodically. Throughout the remainder of the time in case there are questions. And Zachary, thank you for letting me know the sound hasn't cut out in quite a while. All right, guys, so moving forward, week number 4, here we go, our final week for creative presentation. This is our final snapshot of all of the due dates and the assignments that you need to take care of for the remainder of our week and of the course. So as you can see, there's your normal 4 assignments here, and then there's one little last one here, the portfolio competency self-reflection that will be due a little bit later, actually July 31st. You have a little extra time to complete that. But as you can see, everything this week is, with the exception of that last one, is due on Sunday, July 29th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll go over everything that is due this week. But at the top, as you can see in big blue letters, I've written out that no late work is accepted in week 4. All right, so guys, I just want to kind of put that out there. We're at a point at the end of the course where late work really should not be something that is habitual, okay? Something happening on a regular basis. It's really a bad habit to get into. As you guys can see, the pacing, everything just keeps on trudging along, and if you get behind, it's a real dangerous place to be. So we're at a point with this course where you should be on track unless something significant is happening, something, that's extreme, something oftentimes that is documented with, medical documentation or some other kind of documentation. I won't be accepting late work in week 4. And I want to give you guys some honest perspective from me about what happens when I'm grading next week and what's about to happen. So our major months of enrollment for Full Sail are coming up. August and September are record enrollment months. So I will actually be taking on 100 students next month, which is not the norm whatsoever, in addition to training someone else that is coming in as a contractor. So I'm starting next week in a very intense time and grading you guys in week number 4. So really, I can't be kind of chasing everybody down, trying to get late work turned in, trying to deal with technology issues. So please, guys, just please keep that in mind. You're also starting a new course. I know you want to just kind of put a nice little bow on this and be done with one course and start into another. So let's just kind of have some empathy and perspective going both ways if we could for this week, and make sure everything is turned in on time. If there are issues with submission, make sure you contact FSO support as quickly as possible. They're the ones that can help you with the technology issues and getting things submitted. Chandler, you're asking, when do we start the next course? Monday. So when you wrap up with me on Sunday, your next course will start on Monday, and that's the pacing of it. I believe Monday is the 30th, Danielle. I think 29th is Sunday, I think. Because everything should be due on my class on Sunday the 29th, and then we start again on the 30th. Let me check my calendar really quick. Yes, Monday is the 30th. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So here's the list of items that you need to complete this week. The 4.1 Go To training, either the live session, and thank you to all of you that have taken the time and the energy to complete or to attend the live session. If you can't, that's fine, but please be sure to watch the recording and check off that you have completed it. The 4.2 is the final reading that you have to do. It's just one more chapter to complete. Just check, or actually I will go over what you need to answer to complete that. The 4.3 assignment is called presentation feedback, and I'll tell you about the requirements for that one. But I will say this is just a forewarning. A lot of students, for whatever reason, forget this one. And it's 10% of your grade. So guys, please don't forget the 4.3 presentation feedback assignment. I think students get very wrapped up in their final submission of the final draft, that this one kind of just gets lost in the shuffle. So make sure that you complete that one. It's not labor intensive whatsoever, but it is worth 10% of your grade. And then the 4.4 brand yourself presentation final submission, what you've been working towards for weeks now, is due on July 29th. And then finally, I will go over this portfolio competency self-reflection due on July 31st. So take a picture of this, put it in your calendar, do whatever you got to do to remind yourselves of all these due dates coming up, if you will. All right, so the 4.2 learning activity is this final chapter, chapter 8 from the Resonate textbook. It's called There's Always Room for Improvement. So I'm looking for you to make just one post here to complete or satisfy this requirement. So just make one post that discusses the most interesting thing from this last chapter of chapter 8 and another interesting item from either of the two books, Resonate or Slideology. Also, tell us how you plan on using them in the future. Easy peasy, one chapter, no big deal. So just get that done early in the week and kind of put that behind you so you can move into the other assignments and focus on them. So that's the 4.2 activity. All right, so the 4.3 is the presentation feedback assignment. And you will definitely need to access the feedback instructions here because that is where you will access the 3 videos I will reference in a moment. The feedback rubric. This is an interesting assignment because I actually don't use the rubric for this particular assignment. I will go over the grading criteria that I use. I steer away from the rubric with this one, so I will go over the grading criteria in a moment. But please be sure that you can access this PDF for the feedback instructions. So let's go over this assignment. All right, so presentation feedback. Obviously, feedback is a massively important part of my job, and hopefully you guys have seen the value in it. Constructive feedback really is something that is a vital part of this process, almost any process that you're going through. It's that one item that takes you from point A to point B, because we're always striving to do better and incorporate improvement in our work. And that constant feedback loop from those that you trust, those are trying to help you strive to be better, is absolutely essential. So that's really what this assignment is all about. It's you guys giving constructive feedback for presentation. So let's go into the requirements. And this is that PDF file that you need to access because these 3 presentations right here, 1, 2, and 3, are listed in the instructions, okay? So what I want you guys to do for this assignment is to watch all 3 presentations, but you're only going to provide feedback for one of them. Now, these are actual Full Sail students that have created the Brand Yourself presentation. They've given us permission to use their assignments in this their final drafts in this assignment. So you're actually going to be viewing other people's final drafts, which is what you're working on right now. So I would like you to take the time to watch all three, but you only need to provide feedback for one of these presentations. It doesn't have to be feedback for all three, just choose one. So after you've made your choice of which of the three you want to provide feedback for, I want you guys to answer these questions here to consider in your review for feedback. Okay, these are prompts that will help you to provide constructive feedback to that particular student. Number one, what specifically did you like about this presentation? Please explain. Number two, what part of the presentation was most difficult to follow? This is where that constructive part of criticism comes into play, because if you just tell them, I really just hated your introduction, that doesn't give them any direction. If you say, I really didn't connect with your introduction because you didn't introduce yourself, or there wasn't a story there, I would love to hear you try this instead. So that's where you need to explain and offer suggestions for improvement. Third, based on what you have learned this month in creative presentation, what advice do you have for the presenter for their final submission? Fourth, what techniques, skills, or qualities from the course materials did this presentation exemplify? That's where I'm looking for you guys to bring in elements from the course. Did they make the audience the hero? Did they have a stellar star moment? Was the Hale method incorporated into their verbal delivery? Things like that. And then lastly, which of the three pillars does this presentation appeal? To ethos, to pathos, and or to logos. We talked about those last week in week 3. Ethos is to ethics, pathos is to an emotion, and then logos is to logic, okay? Chandler, I see your question and I'll answer you in 1 second. So after you've made the choice, after you've watched all 3 videos, please just choose one of the videos, and then you will need to respond to all 5 of those prompts that I went over, and that will be the first portion of this assignment, because as you know, there's always different steps, right? So you will then create a document, and Chandler, this is where I will answer your question, containing an analysis of all the aspects of the presentation. So Chandler asked in the chat box, can we record this as an audio file? Unfortunately not. This will be a written assignment, so it does need to be done either in a Word document or a PowerPoint or Adobe Spark with the Pages option. So this will need to be a written file and not an audio file. Unfortunately, it won't be that way for this one, but thank you for asking that question, Chandler. So make sure that you guys have addressed all of those prompts from the prior screen, and then you need to be sure that you have included this important step. A lot of students forget this step. After your analysis, add a final paragraph reflecting upon your thoughts about feedback, reflecting about how you feel that feedback either helps or hurts you in some way. Hopefully it helps you, but how this process has really provided a good insight into your own work, okay? So make sure in the first step you answer those 5 questions. In the next step, you have provided that final paragraph reflecting upon your own thoughts about feedback, okay? So really it's that simplistic. I didn't write these instructions. I'm not a fan of how these instructions were written, so I'm trying to make this as simplistic as possible. So really, guys, watch the videos, pick one, answer those 5 questions, and then also add a final paragraph reflecting about your own thoughts about feedback. So I am seeing a couple of questions here. Let's see, Zachary. So our thoughts about feedback in general, right? Zachary, just kind of tie it into how you think the feedback process has hopefully helped steer you in the right direction, what it's done for you, how it's benefited you, what you've gotten out of it, what you maybe hope to see, how you expect to move on from it now after you've received feedback. Just kind of personalize it a bit into how it's been, a beneficial part of the process for you. Let's see, Dalen, are steps 1 and 2 separate paragraphs, or can I incorporate the questions? Exactly. That's Dalen. That's why I'm not a fan of how these are written out, because steps 1 and 2 are basically the same thing. And I will see, I have never asked a student for their permission to use an example of this assignment, but I will go back through my my June class and see if I can get an example that I can forward along to you. If not, maybe I can go ahead and just take their name off of it and show you a quick example. It's probably something that I would say these usually take about a half page to maybe 3/4 of a page to complete. Really not an extensive assignment whatsoever. It's just kind of answering those first questions and adding that final analysis at the end. It's Dalen, you're saying similar to the first assignment. It's nowhere near as extensive as the TED Talk assignment. Chandler, you're saying, I think I understand also. I thought they seemed similar. Kind of so. Oh, I see what you mean, like by viewing one and then kind of providing an analysis. This isn't that, instead of analyzing, if I could say the word right, instead of analyzing what the speaker is doing, you're now providing feedback on what you think they could do to improve. And let those prompts guide you through the process. So are there any questions about this? I hope I'm clearing things up. John, you're asking the feedback would go in the reply. No, so this assignment is going to be the submission for this assignment. It would not go into the reply. It would go where you would submit the actual assignment. This is not a discussion board. This is going to be an area where you submit the assignment. So do I have any other questions about this assignment before I move into the grading criteria? Okay, I'm not seeing any just yet, but of course, if you have any, just send them through. All right, so here's kind of a recap, trying to help you guys do this. The visual portion, I'm not looking at the visuals for this. I'm really looking at the content for this assignment here. Chandler, you're asking, could we do it in PowerPoint but overlap an audio file? It will be different than what is typed. I'm just trying to get out of my shell and record more stuff for me. It will still have a Word document. Chandler, I could do that. If you've got a script written out that you're turning in and you want to kind of go to that extra step and record, I'm fine with that. But please don't just turn in an audio recording. So if you've got the written script and you wanted to also include the audio file, I am okay with that. I shall not, ma'am. Thank you, Chandler. All right, guys. So just to recap that one, answer the questions in step 1 about the speaker's performance, giving constructive feedback, use those prompts as a guide, and don't forget that final step where you're reflecting on feedback. So here's my grading criteria. I do want to focus most on the final drafts and get those graded and out to you guys. So I kind of have this assignment as a pass-fail assignment, to be honest with you. But there's a little bit of wiggle room in there as well. But if you complete all of the requirements, all of the steps or all of the prompts have been considered, you've got that final paragraph about feedback, you will receive a 100 on this assignment, okay? If you're missing one of the steps, especially that final paragraph that I keep saying a lot of students miss, if you're missing that step, then it will be a 75. If there is no submission by Sunday, the deadline, it will be a 0, no exceptions to that. And that's something, unless there's written documentation of an extenuating circumstance. Okay, so that's going to be my grading criteria. I will add this to my follow-up message that I'm sending to you later on tonight, letting you know that this will be the grading criteria for the 4.3 assignment. John, you just asked that. This is the 4.3, yes. Okay, Chandler, you're saying, I just feel step 1 and step 2 will sound the same. They're very similar. Yes, Chandler, that I agree with that. Let me see what I can do to either I will create my own feedback assignment to give to you guys as an example, or I will ask one of my past students if they would quickly give me permission to show you. It is really not a detailed assignment. But yeah, the way that the instructions are written, it does kind of give that steps 1 and 2 are the same. So just make sure you're answering those first 5 prompts. You've got that extra paragraph about feedback and your reflection on it, and you guys will be fine. But I will do a good job to get an example out to you as soon as possible. Okay, so any other questions on the 4.3 before I move into the 4.4 final draft? All right, I am moving on. Moving on. Okay, great. Thank you guys for answering. All right, the Brand Yourself final draft, final presentation. Definitely going to be your major focus of this week. So I wanted to go through the particulars about this assignment. Obviously, with the first draft, you know everything that is required, and this week you're putting those changes and final touches from the first draft moving into the final draft. But I wanted to make this very clear that there must be changes from your first draft to your final draft in order to receive credit, okay? So you cannot just turn in your first draft twice, even if you receive a 100 on it. Unless I have expressly told you, you don't have to make any changes, which is a rare, rare, rare occasion. You must make changes. Now, some of you guys really went full out on your first draft. So you might be in a position this week where there's minor tweaks and shifts and changes to make, and that's a great position to be in. Some of you guys might still have quite a bit of work to do and content to build or visuals to build and items to add on, okay? And that's your week to do that right here. So I just want to make it very clear that you cannot turn in your first draft twice. If you do that, the final draft will be a grade of a 0, and it pains me to assign that grade. It's happened before. I will more than likely reach out to you saying, hey, this might have been a mistake. You really need to make changes. And that does happen. Sometimes it's an honest mistake. So, but if I do reach out to you and I don't receive something very quickly back, it would be a 0, and I would hate for anyone to have a 0 after working this hard. All right, let's see. Chandler, you're saying, I want to add more slides. Have it be a very fast pace. I talk a lot. If you don't know this, now you do. Chandler, are you asking about adding more slides to your first draft? I don't think that I've given feedback on yours just yet, so I haven't viewed it. And then while I'm waiting on Chandler for you to reply, Zachary, I'm addressing your question. Just to refresh my memory, what is the time frame we're looking at for the assignment? 4 to 5 minutes or what? The actual time constraint for the final draft is 3 to 4 minutes. So it's a minute less than you're thinking right now. And I'm going to go over a long checklist of items in a moment. Okay, so this is item number 1. That changes must be made. So I just want to be very clear about that. Okay, guys, so here are the items that I see most commonly come up that I want you to be thinking about. I want you to be sure that you are addressing, even if you haven't received my feedback yet for the first draft. These are all different items that you can easily look at your own first draft presentation and start to make shifts and changes for the final draft, okay? All right, so number 1 on the list is oftentimes students forget to introduce themselves. And at one point, I had a family emergency come up, gosh, in March, and my boss, Andy, was doing my go-to session for me because I was dealing with my mom in the hospital, and so he stepped in and said, don't worry about introducing yourself. And I said, well, I beg to differ. I think that your name is an important part of your brand. So I am asking you guys to please be sure to include an introduction, first name and last name, in your presentation. I would like you to do this early in the presentation to be sure that your audience knows who's talking to them. So make sure you've done that right around the same time where you've identified your audience. So please introduce yourself. Next on the list, a monotone voice. So think about week number 2. We talked about the Hale method. We talked about the vocal toolbox. We talked about energy and passion and enthusiasm in the way that you're talking and matching that verbal tone to the tone of the presentation as well. So make sure that when you're recording for the final draft that you're really trying to convey those emotions, that energy, that anticipation of perhaps this wonderful partnership of working with this company, of working with this client in the future. The goal is to get your audience excited about potentially working with you. Okay, so make sure you're trying to avoid that flat monotone voice, and you're interjecting the variety in your pacing, the variety in your tone and your pitch. Those types of things really convey that emotion. So try to tap back into week 2 and all those lessons that we talked about with the emotional storytelling assignment. All right, images. Images, I'm seeing a lot of great images. I had a great one today, and I can't remember I cannot remember whose it was, but it was fantastic because it was so consistent. A lot of great black and white photography. It was just from beginning to end, a nice, just crisp and clear visual presentation. So I can't remember who it was. If you're in the go-to session, speak up right now, and I'll give you that credit where credit is due. But I'm sorry, I can't think of the name right now. But make sure, guys, that your images are high resolution, okay? That you're incorporating, images that are really complementary to the visual, or excuse me, the verbal message. Make them large. Try to only use one image per slide. If you're grouping them together, they tend to lose their impact. So make sure you're using just a strong, impactful image to complement your verbal delivery. Danielle is saying Pixabay was awesome. I'm glad to hear that feedback, Danielle. Thank you for sharing that. So remember, whatever it is that you're talking about, try to complement that message with the image on the screen. You're trying to engage your audience non-verbally with that visual message. Also, with the images, my suggestion is to try and change that slide or that image around every 15 to 20 seconds. Keep that forward momentum going along visually. Okay, so think about that visual aspect of your presentation. If they're blurry, if they're pixelated, if they have a watermark on them, those are things you should try to avoid and switch them out for a more impactful image. All right, breaking the Apple rule. So the Apple rule, just as a quick reminder, was when you are saying it verbally, if you're saying the content verbally, there is no need to actually put the text on the screen. So I definitely want you guys to avoid having largely text-based slides where you're reading the content to your audience. The audience doesn't need you to read to them. They're looking for you to deliver the information in a dynamic way with your own voice. So try to avoid heavy text-based slides. Some text is fine, but you definitely don't want to have paragraphs on there that you're reading to the audience. So try not to break the Apple rule. Okay, I think this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the list, music. So music, I think, is a great way to add some energy to your presentation. I highly encourage you guys to use background music to your presentations. I think it's wonderful. But here are 2 major items that I want you to be aware of. Number 1, I would rather you not use music with lyrics. You should use something that is instrumental. Why? That is because those lyrics are in direct competition with your own voice, and you want to provide as little distraction for your audience as much as possible. So something without lyrics. The other is to make sure that it is not too loud. I can't tell you how many times a presentation comes through and all I can hear is this blaring music, and I kind of hear a mumbling student in the background. That's not the point of background music. It should be in the background. But if you want to use it, absolutely work on incorporating it. I know Adobe Spark has a ton of different options of just kind of stock music that you can easily incorporate and import into your presentation if you wanted to try it. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, please keep those items in mind. Next on the list, too short or too long. This goes back to the question that was just asked about the time frame. The time constraint for the final draft is 3 to 4 minutes. So if your first draft was only 1 minute, a minute and a half, you've got some content to build. You've got quite a bit more content to build. If you're sitting at 5 minutes, 6 minutes, you really have got to condense some. But the time constraint will be a factor in the 4.4 grading rubric, which I will show you in a couple of minutes. But it does need to be between 3 to 4 minutes. Erin, you're saying yours was about close to 7. Oh boy, you're almost double the time, Erin. Let's see, Chandler, were you at 6? About 6 minutes or so. So you guys are, once I see Dale and you too, you guys are going over the time limit. So once I see that that content, I'll give you some specific advice on where maybe you could make some edits. Oftentimes, you kind of have to think about this assignment as a trailer to a movie, okay, right? Trailers to a movie are there for a purpose of getting you enticed to go and pay the ticket and see the full movie, okay? Same thing here. You want to entice your audience to be excited about you, but want to know more about you. So you really want to just give them the highlights and a few of the reasons why they should be in contact with you and consider you as a great potential candidate. But you also want to leave them hanging a little bit to try and find out more. And so that's why it's just about 3 to 4 minutes. It's kind of like your own trailer to your own movie, right? You don't feel like you have to include every single solitary detail. So kind of keep that in mind as you're making some shifts. And I did say that the timing wouldn't count against you for the first draft, but it does count against you for the final draft. So I was hoping that you guys would keep it to 3 to 4 minutes as close as possible, so you wouldn't have huge edits and changes to make. So Shamel is saying, be a perfect tease. Find that perfect balance. Thank you for that comment, Shamel, made me laugh. All right, so too short or too long, just covered that. Okay, next, the audience. Let me go back to this question. Zachary, is there a strict limit if we go over by 15 seconds? Is that okay? It will be a little bit of a deduction. It's not huge, but I'll show you, Zachary, and everybody else when I have the screenshots of the rubric and how that will count against you. It's not a huge deduction. If it's just a few seconds, maybe just like a point or two. All right, so back to this list here, the audience. So the audience needs to be very clearly identified at the very beginning of your presentation, okay? So we've taken that concept of the audience being the hero back from week number 1, way back in the day, right? When the audience is the hero. So I'm looking for you guys to bring that concept to life and introduce yourself and really identify and connect with your audience at the very beginning of the presentation. If we run through the entire presentation and I have no idea who you're talking to, that's going to be a big piece of feedback that I will be giving you. So really think about your audience. If it's unclear, it needs to be crystal clear at the beginning of the presentation. Aaron, let me see your comment. I wasn't leaving them hanging. My presentation is to Big Hit Entertainment. I gave them every reason in the world to hire me. Oh, Aaron, you're going back to the time constraint. So Aaron, I'll be curious to get my feedback to you to see how you've given them every reason to hire you. Maybe we'll have to leave them hanging a little bit. Jessica, good question. Would it be considered a deduction if the audience is mentioned halfway through the presentation? I would like to say, I would prefer that they are mentioned at the beginning, because the whole idea is to connect with them in the beginning and then maintain a connection. Make sure that they're constantly thought of throughout the presentation. So if it's done in a way that would be appropriate, it's hard to say without seeing it yet, Jessica. So I will probably get to that one tomorrow or Wednesday. I can give you a little bit more specific feedback, but more than likely I will ask you to kind of shift it to more at the beginning. You're welcome, Jessica. Danielle, I used a slide to represent my audience. Is that okay since I'm doing Lionsgate? So Danielle, let me ask you this. Did you mention them verbally, or did you just address them with the visual aspect, with the visual slide? Because I would like to hear you verbally address your audience. So Danielle, so that'll probably be part of my feedback to you, is to, even though you've clearly identified your audience, Lionsgate visually, I'd also like to hear you, connect with your audience verbally as well. So I would like to see you at least verbally do it. If you wanted to do it visually as well, you can do that. Dante is saying, I try to address them both visually and verbally. I would prefer both, at least verbally, because that's going to be, that message is going to be a big part of the grading criteria here. All right, guys, so let me get to these last 2 items on this long list. Okay, call to action. That's something that I see quite a bit that is missing in the first draft. A lot of students just kind of stop short. And so you need to really think about how to make it all come full circle for your audience, wrap it up, and then I want you to also be explicit about what your audience should do next, okay? Oftentimes I tell students, put the ball in their court, all right? The audience should see your presentation and know exactly what they should do next. And so you should be direct about that. And it could be as simple as you saying, I look forward to you contacting me. I look forward to setting up an interview with you. Please contact me at, and then show visually your contact information on a final slide. But make sure that the last thing that you want to do is deliver this dynamic presentation and the audience is watching and they're like, okay, well now what do I do? What does this person expect of me to do next? So that's what a call to action will be in a case like this. You're telling them what is the next step that you would like to see them take. So make sure that that is included in your content that you are giving to the audience. Lastly, the credits. Okay, so credits, you can either do this on a final screen or a final slide if you wanted to, or you could submit a separate Word or text-based document showing the credits. Remember, I am not looking for you to provide formal APA-style citations for the work that you're using or the images that you're incorporating or the music that you're including, but I would like to have some kind of a reference to where it is that you're finding this information, giving credit where credit is due. Oftentimes it's just a link to the website where you found the image or you found the music. Yes, Chandler, I will leave APA for the English composition instructors that are coming your way in a couple of months. That's so much fun, but I won't require you to do that and I won't be looking for that. So let's just take some pressure off of both of us and not have to worry about it. But I do expect you guys to provide a credits or a reference page showing where you have found this information. Let's see, Danielle, I left the credits screen out until I do the final draft. It definitely needs to be included on the final draft. So if you didn't include it for the first draft, that's okay, but make sure it is included for the final draft. Kimberly, let me read your question first. Kimberly, I will, if anybody else wants to answer Kimberly about that question about PowerPoint with the audio and the slide changes, you're most certainly welcome to answer that. I just want to keep going with the content right now. And then I can readdress that later, Kimberly. Chandler, I linked the URL under or next to the photo. Is that okay? Yes, if you wanted to go ahead and place a small font size of the credits for that photo within that photo, that's fine. Just make sure it's kind of off to the bottom or off to the corner so it's not really kind of taking away the impact of the image. So that is okay if you do that. All right, so that is going to be my most common issues checklist, if you will. Do you guys have any other items that you'd like to ask me about? Something that you're not clear about that I could potentially clear up? Let's just kind of pause here for some questions. Jessica, since it says just an assignment, do we have to include our real contact? Great question. Do we have to include our contact information in the presentation or could we use made up ones? Thank you, Jessica, for asking that. I think I forgot to address that last week. I absolutely do not require that you include your email address and your real cell phone number and all of that. You can you can make up or put like dummy numbers in there if you want to put, the phone number of 99999 whatever, or make up a fake email address. I don't expect you guys to share your contact. That's your information and that's your privacy level. If you would like to, that's fine. As long as you're kind of going through the motion of showing that you would have provided that, I am pleased with that. But no, I will not be calling you and checking to see that the number is correct. So if you aren't comfortable with that and you've included that, you can go definitely and change that. I know that some of you sometimes might post this to YouTube and you don't want that information out there, and I'm not going to force you to do that. Don't worry. Thank you, Jessica, for that question. Let me scroll up for a moment. Okay, John, you're asking, the 4.3 is an audio about someone's work, right? No, the 4.3 assignment is a written assignment providing feedback about one of the 3 videos that was listed. The 4.4 is the actual final draft of the Brand Yourself presentation. So that's the difference between those 2 assignments. Okay, guys, so any other questions? about the final draft that's bothering you, that's been riding on you, that you don't think you're clear about, now is a great time to ask. And thank you guys that have been asking questions. They've been wonderful. And Kimberly, Zachary is providing an answer about your PowerPoint question. Oh, Chandler, how fast can we talk? Well, okay, so Chandler, that's actually a good question because some of us are fast talkers, right? So you want to be sure that your message is easily absorbed so that your audience isn't like, this person is talking a mile a minute. I have no idea what he or she just said. And they are just kind of tuning you out. You don't want to talk that fast. You want, the goal again is not about you just getting the message out. It's about how well your audience can absorb your content. So my thought would be is record it. Really maybe ask someone else to watch it. I can always give you my feedback from the first draft that's coming. But if maybe, if you're looking specifically, you're saying you're sonic verbally. You lose track of what you're saying if you speak too slow. That's something that you probably have to work on. But if maybe somebody else could listen to it, the first time through and say, Chandler, I think this is great. I totally understand what you're saying. You're fine. But if someone is saying to you, that just went by me in a blur, you might really need to work on the practice of controlling your speaking rate. So I can give you more feedback once I listen to your first draft. And I'll note, let me put Chandler is sonic with speaking. And I will note that. Justin, good point. If you have a script, you shouldn't lose track. I would also highly recommend writing out your script, timing it. And this does take practice, guys. It's not necessarily going to happen on the first take. There's a lot of practice and time and energy that goes on in perfecting this behind the scenes. Cleo. Where did it go? Around what day will our assignment be graded? I have a couple of appointments coming up, so I really want to get on this. Cleo, I can make a note that it should be, if it was turned in on time, by Tuesday or Wednesday, but I'll kind of put a note that bump up. My Post-it notes are crazy tonight. Let me see. No problem, Cleo. All right. You said, Chandler, you're saying I showed my buddy and he said I was hopped up on the queue. Oh my God, old joke from Dane Cook talking about Nesquik. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, guys. So any other questions about the 4.4 before I go over the grading rubric? Okay, great, guys. So, but if there are, of course, we will stay over for a little bit of time and I can stay in the room for a bit to answer them. All right, first, submission. This should not be brand new information to anybody. It's just the same as we've done all month long. So if your final version is something that you created online, say Adobe Spark, perhaps it's Prezi, perhaps it's YouTube, again, you will need to create a Word or text-based document. And within that text-based document, include your name and a link to the file as your submission. That's what you will drag and drop into the platform. Make sure it is not listed as private. I need to be able to view it. So if it's on YouTube, make sure that it is either unlisted or public and not private. If it does come up as private, I will reach out to you. But just to save me that whole rigmarole, we can just not put it on private, please. If your final version is an actual file, if you've created a PowerPoint or a Keynote, something that you can actually drag and drop, just drag it and drop it in there. But make sure that it is automatically playing from the beginning to the end. Okay, I should not have to guess which slides go with which pieces of audio. It should be in an automatic play format. FSO support is, again, available for help with those technology issues. Chandler, you're asking what is autoplay. So I should not have to manually click through any slides. I should not have to manually click on an audio file. It should be in an autoplay format, and there's ways to do that. There's tutorials, there's Lynda tutorials, there's YouTube tutorials, and then FSO support can also help you with that. But we don't necessarily teach how to do this in every single program, but there are definitely resources out there for you to do that. Danielle, you're saying FSO and technology issues is sad. To address that, Danielle, I know that it's very taxing on you guys to not have your launch boxes. And I want you to know that I understand that. And I'm trying to do everything that I can to work with the technology that's out there and get that to you. I know a lot of you guys are completing these assignments on iPads and phones and things. But it is something I am aware of. And I wish that you did have your launch box, but it is coming, and it is going to be very helpful. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's go through the grading rubric for the 4.4 assignment. It is a 2-part rubric. The dimensions are going to be the same: exemplary, accomplished, developing, and beginning. This assignment is 20% of your grade, so it's a very large chunk of your grade. So here's what I'm looking for when grading your assignments across the board. First is going to be the content, okay? Did you address all of the project requirements? Is there a clearly defined audience? An organizational structure with a beginning, a middle, and an end? Did you incorporate at least one star moment? Did you end with a call to action? And are the visuals enhancing the message? All right. So that is what I'm looking for when it comes to the content. Next item, critical thinking. This is where I'm looking for you to include some specifics. Are you being very vague with your content information, or are you providing details specific to your audience, specific to your degree program, and how those things and how those two different major items connect and combine together, okay? So go into depth and detail in those sections. Relevance. Are you clearly using and incorporating the concepts that we've discussed this month? Have you incorporated the best practices with slide design, like not breaking the Apple rule, using large, vibrant images to complement your content? Have you incorporated the use of ethos, logos, and pathos? Is your audience clearly the hero throughout the entire presentation? Okay, so those are going to be concepts that I'm looking for you to really kind of show off that you have learned this month and that you've put into play in this presentation. All right, so that's page 1 of the rubric. Page 2, mechanics, all right? Are you using professional language? Even though this is not a written assignment, I am looking for you guys to use proper grammar, pronounce things, pronounce words as you should be. I will asking for you to avoid using slang or derogatory terms. Keep it professional. So make sure that professional language has been included. If you do include some text on your slides, absolutely make sure that they are free of spelling and grammar errors. I can't tell you the couple times where students will write out the name of the company and they spelled the company name wrong. Be sure that you're spelling the company name correctly if you put that in text on your slides. Okay, so make sure that spelling and grammar is correct. Slide design. Yes, Chandler, that happens. Slide design. All right, so are your slides and your visual presentation visually appealing? All right, yes, absolutely. I want this to be a dynamic, visually appealing presentation for your audience. Are you keeping consistent in your use of colors and fonts and your images throughout the presentation? The example that I mentioned earlier with the black and white photo consistency, I thought was absolutely stunning. So keeping consistent with your formatting, keeping consistent just with the visual presentation is absolutely a win. All right, lastly is the delivery. And as we had talked about timing earlier, this is where timing will count as well. So this is kind of a 2-part rubric dimension, if you will, in the delivery. So with the verbal delivery, I'm looking for you to have energy. I'm looking for you to have passion and enthusiasm in the vocal delivery. I'm looking for the Hale method. I'm looking for you to do your best to try and avoid a monotone voice. If you are on camera, which some of you guys are, and that's wonderful. If you are on camera, I will be looking a bit at body language, making effective eye contact with the camera. So if you're going to be going to that route, I am going to be looking for you to have a professional appearance as you were talking, to be using gestures appropriately, to be looking into the camera as you're talking. Also with the timing, all right, down here you see at the bottom, presentation length is within the allotted time. The allotted time is 3 to 4 minutes. All right, but as you can see, it starts to have a little bit of a deduction. 8 points, 7 points, 5 points, okay? So there's going to be a deduction. So if you are close to the allotted time, for me, that term is usually 0 to 15, 20 seconds over or under. That's probably where you'll land on the accomplished portion, as long as your verbal delivery was excellent. If you're going 30 seconds over, 30 to 45 seconds over, it's going to be in the developing section. Anything more than that is going to be down in the beginning section. Okay, so also, conversely, if your delivery is within the time, but you're not very enthusiastic and you don't have a lot of energy in your presentation, you might see a deduction because lacks enthusiasm and or confidence when speaking. Okay, so those are going to be the 6 elements or dimensions that I'm looking for when grading this assignment. So I'm going to pause here. A couple of items have come up. Give me a moment, guys. Just 1 second. Justin, okay, was the quote I used from Bungie okay? I know it was probably not professional to swear, but I was quoting them. Yes, Justin, and I had mentioned to you I really liked that portion of the presentation because it really connected back to the audience. So I am okay with that. If it's something that the audience has actually said, I'm okay with that. I just don't want to see a presentation, laced with, cursing and derogatory terms and foul language. I don't think that that's appropriate. But when you used it in the way that you used it for your first draft, I thought it was fine. So that's to answer your question, Justin. Let's see, Dennis, I wanted to do a video as well, but I thought you were looking for pictures over audio. Dennis, thank you for making me clarify that, and I need to clarify that. So if you guys want to appear on camera, that is absolutely fine. I would highly suggest bouncing back and forth between having you appear on camera and incorporating some images as well. Oftentimes students do not appear on camera. They're very, very uncomfortable to do that. So it's not something that happens quite frequently. But also just to kind of have you on camera from beginning to end kind of loses the interest of the audience because it's the exact same visual from beginning to end. So I would suggest, Dennis, and anyone else doing this, that if you want to appear on video, that you also kind of incorporate some still shots or some images of, just to complement your verbal delivery as well. It just kind of keeps it moving forward and keeps it kind of mixes it up for the audience a little bit, keeps them interested. Let's see. You're welcome, Dennis. Justin, you said, do we need to be all dressed up pretty? Absolutely. Black tie event here is what I'm expecting. No. My expectation, if you do appear on camera, a professional background, meaning, if you're in your bedroom, if you're in your bedroom, I don't see your messy bed behind you. I don't see your messy closet and that you haven't cleaned it in 20 years. PJs are not okay. But something just a professional, you don't have to be dressed up for goodness sakes, but in a professional environment, something that's not distracting, make sure that you are dressed, not in your PJs, not in your bathrobe, whatever. But it would be you would feel comfortable if your audience saw you giving that presentation. Okay, so I don't expect you guys to dress up in a suit and tie or in a dress or whatever it happens to be, but something appropriate for the presentation. You do not have to appear on camera. Again, you do not have to appear on camera for this presentation, but if you want to, those are some things to consider for that. Let me see if I answered everybody. Okay, I think I've answered all of the questions in the chat box. So again, I'll pause here just for a moment to see if there's anything else anyone would like me to address. Okay, good. Okay, so you guys have your questions that are answered, all right? So we're gonna be working hard on the final submission. You guys are so close. You've done so much work, and it's really all coming together nicely. So I will be working very, very hard a little bit more tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday to get this feedback to you as quickly as I can. Kimberly, you're asking your question about PowerPoint. I'm really honestly not going to be the exact person. I can kind of help you one-on-one and do some Googling and see if I can help you with that. But I will, if you wanted to kind of stay in there in the room, we can try and address that question about the PowerPoint and audio once that's done, and we can kind of maybe unmute some people and start talking about that. But I have one more assignment. Chandler said you will help. So I have one more assignment to discuss as well. Zachary, I like that late submission text at the bottom for week 4 when there is no late work. Zachary, are you asking a question about late submission text? Dalen, you're saying you're having some issues with the format you used for your draft. What is the format that you used? John, I see your question. Is the class over? Not just yet. I've got a couple more things to discuss. And then John, back to your thing. PowerPoint and Android does not work. On Apple does. I'm not sure I'm understanding your question about that, John. Dalen, you're saying you use Powtoon, you'll wait for feedback, but I think I may need to go a whole different way with it. Powtoon is it's not my favorite, but oftentimes it does the job, but let me look at that and we can make that decision. I don't want you to have to completely change it. Kimberly, you're asking, what if I wanted to change my presentation completely? That's up to you guys. I mean, you've put a lot of time and energy and effort into what you've created thus far, but there's always room for shifts and changes. This is a moving document. This is a changing document. So if you want to take it in a different direction after the first draft, I'm okay with that. I do ask that you take into my feedback into account as you're making those changes. But just wait. Let me look at it first before you throw it in the garbage, because it might be wonderful, and you might have a lot of really great elements, and you're probably on the right track. So why don't we wait until we see what's going on before we totally scrap it? Danielle, you're saying I've redone it completely 5 times over. My tech issues. Whoops, hang on. My tech issues, and it sucks. After all the work that you put in. Danielle, I think we need to chat. I think we really definitely, me and you, we need to chat and get you past this is what we need to do. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Dalen, I used a free version with watermarks. Yeah. With watermarks, and there's like a ton of latency, so it's bugging me now. That's why I don't necessarily suggest Powtoon. You guys know Adobe Spark is probably my go-to one, but again, guys, don't scrap anything just yet until you hear back from me with the feedback, and then we can always chat as well. Shamel, thank you for that comment. I really do appreciate that. Trying to go through all of these items here first. Yeah, so if you guys are feeling unsettled, just pause. Just sit on it for a couple minutes and just breathe on it, and we will get through it. No worries. I certainly don't want anyone scrapping the hard work that they have done at this point. If it can be saved, we will save it. If we need to shift programs, we can do that. So we will get that done. But let me move into this last assignment to talk to you guys about, and then I can hang out for as long as you like and answer these additional questions. All right. So reflection, right? To change your world. So I want you guys to take some time to reflect on this last month that we have had together. So think about these questions. And if you want to answer me in the chat box, I would love to hear a couple of these responses because I think these are very positive things. So in the last month, since you started Full Sail and you started Creative Presentation way back in June, I want you to think about a couple of things. Did this class meet what were some of your expectations? Did the class meet your expectations? What was your biggest takeaway? What are you most proud of that you've accomplished in these last couple of weeks? So if you want to think about that for a minute, I would love to share a couple of these. With the group, I really am proud of you guys. It is amazing what you guys can accomplish in this short amount of time. So I hope that you will take a couple of minutes to reflect on everything that you have done. But for this assignment, the portfolio competency self-reflection, that's what I want you to kind of start to think about. And you will write or you can speak. Chandler, that was for you. This can be an audio file. I want you to just do a brief self-reflection on everything that you've gone through or everything that you've accomplished over the last couple of weeks, okay? So this assignment doesn't hold a weight towards your final grade. But if you don't complete it, there will be a negative impact of a couple of points deducted on your professionalism score, which we really haven't revisited since the first portion of the class. So I want you to do some reflection about the process that you've been through this month. And I see a couple of you responding, and I'll share those in a moment. So for this assignment, you are to either write a short essay or complete a video, or you can do an audio narration as well, talking about some of the outcomes of this course. So here's what I want you to address in this last assignment. What did you expect from the creative presentation course? Did this class meet your expectations? And explain your answer. What is your biggest takeaway from the course? How well have you met the requirements of the class? What are you especially proud of? What would you do differently if you could start the class over? And how do you think the skills that you learned in this class will help in your remaining classes and in achieving your ultimate goals? Okay, so that's going to be your final assignment. This one's actually due on July 31st. So guys, please concentrate on the 4.3 and 4.4 first, and then do this one last this week. But it is due a couple of days after the course ends on July 31st. And it can be a short written essay. It can be a video. It can be an audio narration as well. So make sure you've completed this one. So a couple of things in the chat box. Let me see. Danielle, thank you for sharing. I'm not very confident writer and speaker, but I'm extremely happy with the awesome grades I got. That's great. So that's a wonderful news. Chandler. Chandler, you are just so funny. I thought I'd learn nothing. It turns out I learned more than I thought I would. I learned writing is difficult. Awesome. Audio is life. That's great. Well, I'm glad that you learned at least something, Chandler. Dennis, I didn't even know I was going to be taking this class, but it's been awesome learning to do these presentations. So the three of you, thank you for sharing some of the things that you have found that you're proud of for these last couple of months. And so just definitely incorporate that into the assignment that I just went over. So some final thoughts before we conclude for the night about transforming the world. Guys, I'm super duper proud of you. I really, really am. I've enjoyed this month. You've been a lively bunch. You've been creative and you've been interactive. And I absolutely do appreciate that. It makes my job much more fun when my students are involved. So I think that is going to, it's been just a real big positive for me this month. So I do thank you. But in the future, just keep in mind how important communication is. So you guys know I'm a communications girl. I think it's vital in any career that you take. And I think it's also vital in your personal lives as well. So keep working on those communication skills, keep working on effective listening and making sure that you are thinking of things from all sides and empathy and things like that. But it will definitely be a skill that will never hurt you to have effective communication skills. And there will never be an industry or a career path where you don't have to effectively communicate with others. It just doesn't exist. So I can see all these comments coming through. You guys are making me laugh. But I definitely wish you guys the best. I truly wish you the best in all of the different paths that you guys are taking. I cannot wait to see where they're taking you. I love hearing from students. I got a message on Facebook from one of my past students that he had just published some of his work and wanted me to take a look at it. And I was absolutely thrilled to hear from them. So I love seeing what my students are accomplishing and keeping in touch. So it's been, it's fun to see that everybody progressing with what they're doing. So I absolutely appreciate you guys. I wish you the best of luck as you continue. This is our final lecture for the course, but of course we'll be in touch throughout the week. And thank you guys for all the comments in the chat box. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the recording. I will be staying in the room for a while for questions, but you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you.